Your FMCSA number is fully active, but if you haul one single load inside California, Texas, or New York without their state authority, you'll be fined, placed out of service, and your truck will be impounded before you reach your first delivery. Your FMCSA number is fully active, and you assume you're legally authorized to operate anywhere in the United States. That assumption is dangerously wrong. If you haul one single load inside California, Texas, or New York without their state-specific interstate authority, you'll be fined, placed out of service, and your truck could be impounded before you even reach your first delivery. The FMCSA does not regulate interstate operations, and each state has its own Department of Transportation, Public Utilities Commission, or DMV, that requires separate filings, separate permits, and separate insurance minimums. Crossing a state line does not automatically grant you authority to operate within that state, and the penalties for non-compliance can destroy your business overnight. Here is the hidden truth that 90% of new authorities never discover. There are currently 26 states that require interstate operating authority for hire carriers. If you haul a load that picks up and delivers within any of these 26 states without the proper state authority, you are operating illegally. In this video, I am giving you the complete 26-state interstate authority checklist, the specific application links for each state, and the exact phone numbers to call to verify your compliance before you haul your first interstate load. You obtain your FMCSA number, and you assume you are now legally authorized to operate anywhere in the United States. You think your federal authority gives you blanket permission to haul loads in every state without any additional paperwork. Here is the arcane truth that 90% of new carriers never discover until they receive a massive fine. The FMCSA does not regulate interstate operations at all. Interstate commerce means your trucking business exclusively operates within its home state. Each state has its own Department of Transportation, Public Utilities Commission, or DMV, that requires separate filings, separate permits, and separate insurance minimums for carriers operating solely within their borders. Your MC number only authorizes you to operate in interstate commerce across state lines. If you haul a load that picks up and delivers within the same state, your federal authority means nothing. Your survival depends on understanding that federal authority and state authority are two completely separate legal requirements. You think only a handful of states require interstate authority. You assume your home state is the only one you need to worry about. Here is the unsettling reality that catches every carrier off guard. Currently, 26 states require interstate operating authority for hire carriers. These states include Alabama, Arkansas, California, Georgia, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, New Mexico, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, Washington, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Each of these states has its own application process, its own fee structure, and its own insurance requirements. You cannot assume that because you have an MC number, you are automatically authorized to operate in any of these states. If you haul a load that originates and terminates within any of these 26 states without the proper state authority, you are operating illegally. Your survival depends on knowing exactly which states require interstate authority and obtaining the correct permits before you haul a single load. You think California is just another state with standard requirements. You assume your federal authority and insurance are sufficient to operate there. Here is the arcane truth that terrifies every carrier who enters California. California requires a motor carrier permit and a CA number for all interstate operations. Interstate California household goods and passenger carriers are required to have an active CPUZ permit issued by the California Public Utilities Commission, PUC. You must display on the power unit the identification number, CalT number, the CPUZ permit number issued by the California PUC. California also requires minimum insurance coverage of $750,000 for most operations, but many Sacramento area operators carry higher coverage because of urban operating environments. If you haul loads that both pick up and deliver within California, you need a CA number, a motor carrier permit, workers' compensation if you have employees, and EPN enrollment. California's carbon emission standards require all diesel trucks over 14,000 pounds GVW are operating in California to have 2010 plus model year engines. Your survival depends on understanding that California is not just another state. It is a completely different regulatory universe. You assume Texas follows the same federal rules as every other state. You think your MC number and USDOT number are all you need to operate in the Lone Star State. Here is a revelatory truth that catches thousands of carriers off guard. Texas issues a TXDOT number for interstate carriers through the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles, TXDMV. Motor carriers operating interstate commercial motor vehicles on a road or highway in Texas must be registered with the TXDMV Motor Carrier Division. Interstate carriers need TXDMV authority, which typically takes 3 to 10 days to process. In Texas, no motor carrier shall operate a foreign commercial motor vehicle in interstate transportation unless the motor carrier obtains and has in effect an insurance policy which covers at least a minimum level required by 49 CFR Part 387. Your survival depends on obtaining a TXDMV number before you haul any load that originates and terminates within Texas. You think New York is a straightforward state with simple requirements. You assume your federal authority is sufficient to operate there. Here is the shocking truth that destroys carriers who ignore New York's rules. New York State requires interstate carriers to obtain operating authority from the New York Department of Transportation. No person shall engage in interstate transportation as a common carrier property by motor vehicle on any highway in this state without a certificate or permit. All interstate motor carriers must have proof of liability insurance, and property and household goods carriers must also maintain proof of cargo insurance. Proof of cargo insurance on Form H. New York may impose additional bonding or insurance thresholds beyond the federal minimums. Your survival depends on obtaining New York interstate authority before you haul any load that stays within New York's borders. You assume Florida is a business-friendly state with minimal regulations. You think your federal authority is enough to operate there. Here is a critical truth that catches carriers who underestimate Florida's requirements. Florida requires interstate trucks to be registered with the Department of Transportation. A Florida DOT number is required for interstate carriers that meet weight or cargo thresholds. Interstate trucking companies follow Florida's rules set by the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, and the Florida Highway Patrol. Florida law sets different limits for interstate carriers, which typically requires a minimum of $300,000 in liability coverage for trucks over 26,000 pounds. Your survival depends on obtaining a Florida DOT number before you haul any interstate load in Florida. You think Georgia is just another state with standard requirements. You assume your federal authority covers you. Here is a gut-wrenching truth that destroys carriers who ignore Georgia's rules. The Georgia Interstate Motor Carrier, GMC, program is a required compliance step for carriers that operate only within Georgia. Carriers must typically obtain a USDOT number from the FMCSA as a prerequisite in many states, followed by applying for state-specific authority through agencies. Your survival depends on obtaining GMC compliance before you haul any interstate load in Georgia. You assume Missouri has the same requirements as neighboring states. You think your federal authority is sufficient. Here is the devastating truth that catches carriers off guard. All for-hire motor carriers transporting property or passengers in interstate commerce, wholly within Missouri, are required to apply for authority to operate in Missouri. To obtain interstate operating authority in Missouri, you must obtain an USDOT number, complete an online application through MoDOT Carrier Express, and have proof of insurance submitted by your insurance company. Your survival depends on obtaining Missouri interstate authority before you haul any load that stays within Missouri. You think Iowa is a simple state with minimal requirements. You assume your federal authority is enough. Here is the arcane truth that catches carriers who underestimate Iowa. A department-issued motor carrier permit or certificate is required before a motor carrier may begin operations in Iowa. Iowa has authority over 4 categories of motor carriers: regular route motor carriers of property and passengers. Your survival depends on obtaining an Iowa interstate permit before you haul any load that stays within Iowa. You assume Oklahoma follows the same rules as Texas. You think your federal authority covers you. Here is the overlooked truth that destroys carriers who ignore Oklahoma. An interstate motor carrier must obtain interstate authority from the commission prior to commencing interstate operations. Oklahoma Administrative Code Section 165:30-10-41 requires interstate authority for interstate motor carriers operating in interstate commerce. Your survival depends on obtaining Oklahoma Intrastate Authority before you haul any load that stays within Oklahoma. You think Pennsylvania is just another state with standard requirements. You assume your federal authority is all you need. Here is the overlooked truth that catches carriers who ignore Pennsylvania's fuel requirements. States like Connecticut, Indiana, Kentucky, Maine, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Utah, and West Virginia all require separate interstate fuel permits. Your survival depends on obtaining the correct fuel permits before you operate interstate in any of these states. You think Wisconsin has simple requirements. You assume your federal authority is sufficient. Here is the ruthless truth that catches carriers who underestimate Wisconsin. To apply for Interstate Operating Authority in Wisconsin, you must complete the Wisconsin Motor Carrier Authority Application Form MB 2843. Interstate Motor Carrier Operating Authority for passengers is permission to carry passengers for compensation and is required unless the operation meets specific exceptions. Your survival depends on completing the Wisconsin MB 2843 application before you haul any interstate load in Wisconsin. Interstate the state-level filing. You think the BOC 3 is only required for interstate operations. You assume you do not need a process agent for interstate hauling. Here is the insidious truth that catches carriers who ignore state-level BOC 3 requirements. Some states have adopted regulations that mirror the guidelines of the FMCSA, requiring a BOC 3 filing for interstate carriers as well. Your survival depends on checking whether your state requires a BOC 3 for interstate operations before you start hauling. You think you can obtain state authority without a USDOT number. You assume the state will issue you authority based on your MC number. Here is the cryptic truth. 38 states, plus Puerto Rico, require USDOT numbers for interstate registrants. Carriers must typically obtain a USDOT number from the FMCSA as a prerequisite in many states, followed by applying for state-specific authority. Your survival depends on obtaining a USDOT number before you apply for interstate authority in any state. You think your federal insurance policy covers you in every state. You assume your $750,000 liability limit is sufficient everywhere. Here is a non-negotiable truth. States can require higher insurance minimums than the federal standard. Interstate carriers must meet local insurance minimums that vary by state. Some states require $1 million or more for certain types of interstate operations. Your survival depends on checking each state's specific insurance requirements before you haul interstate loads. You want to operate interstate legally without facing fines or out-of-service orders. You want to know exactly what each state requires. Here's a revelatory truth that saves your authority from state-level penalties. Interstate authority grants carriers the legal right to operate commercial vehicles within the boundaries of a single state. Step 1. Verify whether your state is one of the 26 states that require interstate authority. Step 2. Obtain a USDOT number if your state requires it. Step 3. Apply for state-specific authority through the appropriate state agency. TXDMV for Texas, CADMV for California, FDOT for Florida, etc. Step 4. Ensure your insurance meets the state's minimum requirements. Step 5. Obtain any additional permits required by the state, such as fuel permits or BOC 3 filings. Your survival depends on knowing that federal authority does not grant you state authority. You must obtain the correct state permits before you haul a single interstate load. The FMCSA will not protect you. The states will enforce their rules. Your authority is only as strong as your compliance with every jurisdiction you enter. You assume the FMCSA's new MO2 system only affects interstate carriers and has nothing to do with your interstate operations because you are only hauling within your home state. You think the state-level filings are completely separate and unaffected by the federal transition that happened in May 2026. Here is the critical reality for 2026 that will catch 99% of carriers off guard when they try to apply for interstate authority. The FMCSA's MO2's registration system went live on May 19, 2026, and has fundamentally changed how states access your federal data for interstate verification purposes. If you have not claimed your login.gov account and verified your identity through IDEMIA, states will not be able to verify your USDOT number and your interstate application will be rejected automatically without any warning. The MOTU system is now the mandatory gateway for states to pull your federal records, and if your account is not fully verified, you cannot obtain interstate authority in any state at all. You must log into the FMCSA portal and ensure your MOTU's account is fully activated before you even start the interstate application process. The states will not tell you that your MOTU's account is the problem, because they assume you already have it set up correctly. Your survival depends on ensuring your login.gov account is fully claimed and your MOTU's profile is up to date before you apply for interstate authority in any of the 26 states. The verification process can take 2 to 3 days, so you must start this before you submit your state applications. Do not assume that because you have an active MC number, your MOTU's account is automatically ready for state-level verification. You assume all states use the same online portal for interstate applications because the FMCSA uses a single national system for interstate operations. You think you can file once and it will automatically cover all states where you plan to operate interstate. Here is the overlooked truth that confuses thousands of carriers every single year. Each state has its own separate portal, its own unique login system, and its own completely different fee structure for interstate authority. Texas uses the TXDMV portal, which requires a separate login and password that is not connected to your FMCSA credentials. California uses the DMV portal, which has its own registration process that takes 4 to 6 weeks to complete. Florida uses the FDOT portal, which requires a separate application and proof of insurance filing. Georgia uses the GMC portal, which has its own compliance requirements that are different from all other states. You cannot use a single login or a single application for all states because they do not share data with each other. You must create separate accounts for each state where you plan to operate interstate, and you must track each one individually. Your survival depends on creating a master list of state portals and tracking your login credentials for each one, because the states do not communicate with each other, and you will be completely on your own to manage your filings. If you lose your login for one state, you will have to start the entire application process over again from scratch. You think your $750,000 liability policy covers you in every state, because that is a federal minimum required by the FMCSA for interstate operations. You assume the states cannot require more than the federal standard because the federal government is supposed to be the supreme authority. Here is the ruthless truth that destroys carriers who ignore state insurance requirements. States can require higher insurance minimums than the federal standard, and they do enforce these higher limits aggressively at weigh stations. Texas requires $750,000 for most interstate operations, but California and New York can require $1 million or more depending on the type of cargo you are hauling. If your policy does not meet the state's minimum requirement, your interstate application will be rejected, and your truck will be placed out of service at the first weigh station inspection. You cannot argue the officer that your federal policy is sufficient because the state law overrides the federal minimum for interstate operations. Your survival depends on checking each state's specific insurance requirements before you haul interstate loads and upgrading your policy if necessary. You must request a copy of the state's minimum insurance requirements from your agent before you apply for authority in any state. Do not assume that your current policy is sufficient because it almost certainly is not for states like California and New York. You have an interstate MC number and you assume you can simply transfer it to interstate operations if you stop crossing state lines and only haul within your home state. You think the FMCSA will allow you to switch your authority type without any issues because you're still operating a commercial vehicle. Here is the cryptic truth that catches carriers off guard every single year. An interstate MC number cannot be converted to an interstate MC number because they are completely different legal authorities. If you want to operate interstate only, you must apply for a separate interstate authority through your state's regulatory agency, not through the FMCSA. Your interstate MC number remains active but does not grant you interstate authority, meaning you cannot legally haul loads that pick up and deliver within the same state. You must maintain both authorities if you plan to operate both interstate and intrastate, which means double the filings and double the fees. Your survival depends on understanding that interstate and intrastate authorities are completely separate and cannot be converted or transferred between each other. You cannot simply switch your authority type with a single form or a phone call to the FMCSA because the states control intrastate authority entirely. You must apply for interstate authority through your state's regulatory agency, which is a completely separate process from your interstate MC number application. You think hazmat regulations are the same for intrastate and interstate operations because the federal hazmat rules are supposed to be universal across all jurisdictions. You assume the federal hazmat rules automatically apply to intrastate hauls without any additional state-level requirements. Here is the gut-wrenching truth that destroys carriers who ignore state hazmat rules. States can impose stricter hazmat regulations than the federal standard, and many states do enforce these stricter rules aggressively. California has additional hazmat training requirements beyond the federal LDT mandate, including state-specific security awareness courses that must be completed annually. Texas requires specific hazmat endorsements for intrastate hauls that are not required for interstate operations, including a state-level background check. You must check each state's hazmat regulations separately because the federal rules are only the minimum requirement, and the states can add as many additional requirements as they want. Your survival depends on verifying state-specific hazmat requirements before you haul any interstate hazmat load, because the fines for non-compliance are massive. You cannot assume that your federal hazmat authority covers you in all states because the states have the power to impose their own rules. You must contact each state's Public Utilities Commission or DOT to verify their hazmat requirements before you accept any interstate hazmat load. You think IFTA, International Fuel Tax Agreement, covers all your fuel tax reporting needs regardless of where you operate, because IFTA is the standard for trucking fuel taxes. You assume the same IFTA decals and quarterly filings apply to interstate operations because you're still driving a commercial truck. Here's the insidious truth that catches thousands of carriers every single year. IFTA only applies to interstate operations that cross state lines and travel through multiple states. If you are operating interstate only, IFTA does not apply to your operations at all, and you must report fuel taxes directly to your home state's tax authority. You cannot use IFTA decals for interstate-only operations because the IFTA system is specifically designed for carriers that cross state lines regularly. You must follow your state's specific fuel tax reporting schedule, which is often quarterly but can be monthly depending on your state. Your survival depends on knowing the difference between IFTA and state fuel taxes and ensuring you're using the correct reporting system for your specific operations. If you mistakenly file IFTA reports for intrastate-only operations, you'll be audited and fined for filing incorrect reports. You must contact your state's Department of Revenue to determine the correct fuel tax reporting requirements for intrastate carriers. Do not assume that IFTA applies to your operations because it likely does not if you are only operating within your home state. You think the state application will process as fast as your FMCSA application did because both are government agencies with similar systems. You assume you will get your intrastate authority within a week or two, just like your MC number approval. Here is the non-negotiable truth that delays your operations and costs you revenue. States typically take 3 to 10 days to process intrastate applications, but some states like California can take 4 to 6 weeks because they have manual review processes. The state agencies are often slower than the FMCSA because they have fewer resources, less automation, and smaller staff dedicated to processing applications. You must plan your interstate operations at least 4 to 6 weeks in advance if you are applying a slow state like California or New York. You cannot wait until you have a load booked to apply for interstate authority because you will lose the load while you wait for the state to process your application. Your survival depends on starting your interstate applications as early as possible and not waiting until you have a load booked to apply. You should begin the application process as soon as you decide to operate intrastate in any state. Even if you do not have a load yet, the processing time is entirely outside your control, and the states do not offer expedited processing for new carriers. You have followed the entire protocol and successfully obtained intrastate authority in the states where you operate, and you are now ready to haul intrastate loads legally. You are now legally authorized to haul loads that pick up and deliver within the same state without fear of fines or out-of-service orders. Here is the revelatory truth that transforms your business and sets you apart from other carriers. Interstate authority is not a burden. It is an opportunity to access loads that interstate-only carriers cannot touch because they lack the proper state authority. Many high-paying local and regional loads require interstate authority, and by having it, You have access to a market that many carriers ignore because they are too afraid of the paperwork. Your survival depends on maintaining your interstate compliance in every state where you operate, because the states enforce their rules aggressively and will not give you a second chance if you're caught operating without authority. You must check your interstate authority status every year to ensure it remains active, because some states require annual renewals. Your authority is only as strong as your compliance with every jurisdiction you enter, and the states will not protect you if you cut corners on your filings. Treat your interstate authority as a valuable asset that requires ongoing maintenance and will reward you with consistent freight and predictable revenue for years to come. The states are watching, so you must stay compliant at all times. If you want the complete 26 state interstate authority checklist and the specific application links for each state, drop Intrastate in the comments below. Everything else is in your hands. Check first, haul second. If you found this breakdown helpful, subscribe to New Authority Trucking Insurance Guide on YouTube for more expert insights, step-by-step compliance guides, and hidden strategies to protect your trucking authority. I release new videos daily at 6:30 a.m. and 8 p.m. to help you save time, save money, and stay compliant with FMCSA rules without expensive consultants. Your subscription ensures you never miss the next critical breakdown, because your authority deserves the right protection. Stay safe, stay legal, and I'll see you in the next video. If this video helped you, consider subscribing to New Authority Trucking Insurance Guide on YouTube. I break down FMCSA rules, insurance traps, and compliance hacks so you can build your trucking business the right way. New videos drop twice a day. Don't miss the one that could save you thousands on your next renewal. I'll catch you in the next one. This content is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, financial, or insurance advice. FMCSA, DOT, and insurance regulations vary by state and situation. The strategies shared here are based on publicly available information and general industry practices. Please consult with qualified legal professional, certified insurance agent, or FMCSA authority for specific guidance regarding your unique application, authority, premiums, or compliance matters. The creator assumes no liability for any actions taken, fines incurred, or authority revocations based on this content. Always verify the current regulations directly with the FMCSA and your insurance provider before making any filing decisions.